got the idea to do Be Thankful as a record. I had been playing it for years in clubs. People always dance to it. It's an extremely simple record. It's 2 minor chords. I was down in Jamaica with a buzz late at night listening to a weather report, and in typical Jamaican fashion, they had echo machines on the weather forecaster and giant ambient sounds, and the weather report itself was kind of like an art piece. And it just got my mind going, and I thought, wouldn't it be cool to take a fusion bass line, a really aggressive, what we would call busy bass line from jazz fusion, and put that onto a dance piece. And Be Thankful was the one that popped into my head. And I started thinking about the vibe parts and the marimba parts and the way I would produce it. And came back to New York and booked the time at a Unique Recording on 48th Street in Times Square. The studio in New York City in Times Square was Unique Recording, Bobby Nathan's place. It was where we made a lot of dance records. It was a really easygoing studio with parrots in the entrance and a pretty loose atmosphere inside, but it had good equipment. And it was an easy place to cut tracks and mix. So always just take the subway right to Times Square and get to work. I played all the parts. I used a Pro 1 and a Dr. Rhythm. And it was really fun because it was really a mallet-heavy production, probably 10 tracks of mallet work with bass synth and some strings. I probably did the strings with an Oberheim OBSX and Dr. Rhythm, and that pretty much makes the whole piece. We mixed it through a bunch of effects units, of course, and Norma Garbo did background vocals. But that's the genesis of the idea. Basically, I went in, laid down the track, built up the textures with mallet instruments, and started to turn it into a groove, a feel. I had a really early generation synthesizer that was called monophonic. It only played one note, and I ran that with a sequence, triggering it with a Dr. Rhythm. And basically, I just laid down a really simple basic track. There was really no sequencing at that point. And I guess 1981, 82. So I laid down the track and I hand played the changes to the tune, but it was sequencing the bass line. So once I got the basic down, then I just went in with a set of marimbas and played probably 8 or 10 overdubs with chords and textures and a bunch of overdubs with the electric vibraphone. That instrument, which I'd been playing since I was a teenager, I wanted to replicate Jimi Hendrix, so I learned how to bend notes and get distortion. The electric vibraphone went through a bunch of different boxes. It was pretty easy as far as tracking it goes because I was the only musician on the production. Recording back in the day was a little bit like going to the hospital to kind of be examined. There was this definite technical feeling that, of course, you didn't understand what everything was for. Your job was just to play your music. It all started to merge with synthesizers. Suddenly, musicians started hanging out in control rooms because their synths were plugged in directly, and little by little, especially when the engineer was taking a leak or having a cigarette, we'd start playing with the controls ourselves. Cutting the vocal on Be Thankful for What You Got was pretty easy because I don't have a lot of range. So I knew it'd have to be 1 or 2 takes at the most. I'd been singing the tune in nightclubs for years, so I was comfortable with it, but I knew I couldn't sing it like William DeVaughn, so I just did my own version. Little by little over the years, I started flying airplanes and started getting really involved in aviation. That led to photography. I was doing photography for some of my record albums, doing music videos, and started a whole new career, shooting stock footage and footage clips for film and TV movies. So I'm still doing that. I'm still flying airplanes. I'm still doing music, but it's really been great. I think I cut the whole thing in a couple of nights. Did the vocal, and then Corey Robbins, this head of Profile Records, he wanted to send it through a bunch of different mixers. First we used Jonathan Faring, who I'd done a lot of work with for WBLS in New York City. And we spent a couple of long nights. I forgot the studio tracking and remixing. Corey didn't like that, and even though it had been a long, expensive process, he then went with a guy named Eric Matthew, who had a couple of hit records. You know, it was an early sequencer song. You know, the big deal in a way was that nobody had used sequencers very much at that point. And I was trying to stick fusion music into dance music. I was really a jazz musician that played vibes, and I wanted to figure out a way to insidiously put in some of the fusion lines that we played in performances into a dance product, hopefully a more commercial product that we could, that I could make a living with. There really wasn't many dance records I'm aware of that used mallet instruments in general, and I thought that was kind of a fun idea to just have a mallet instrument, drums and bass dance record.